Your dog isn't just reacting to what you do. They're learning how to feel about you, not because you're a bad owner, but because of small things you do without even noticing. And the worst part? Most dog owners never realize it. But once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Because most of these don't look like mistakes. They look normal. That's why they're so dangerous. Because your dog feels the result of them every single day. Every single day, whether you notice it or not. This might be the most important video. Because these are the 6 most common mistakes dog owners make every day, and fixing even one of them can completely change your relationship with your dog. Stay with me, because the last one is the one that matters most. And one of these is quietly affecting your dog more than all the others combined. This is where it usually starts. It doesn't look like neglect. It looks like this. You wake up. Before you even open your eyes, your hand reaches for your phone. The room is quiet, but your dog is already awake, sitting there, just watching you. Before you even realize it, you grab your phone. You scroll just for a minute, waiting. They've learned something. If they wait long enough, quietly, eventually, you'll notice them. Not for what you'll do next, but for when you'll notice them. Not for food, not for a walk, for you. That's what they're waiting for, and they notice when you don't notice them. Not in a big way, just a small moment that doesn't come back. Dogs don't measure connection in hours, they measure it in moments. And the first few minutes of your day, they matter more than you think. Because in your dog's world, you are the reference point for everything. When that connection is missing, even briefly, it creates something subtle. Distance. Not physical distance, emotional distance. And once that distance builds, it doesn't disappear on its own. You don't need 10 minutes, just a few seconds. Look at them. Say their name. Let them greet you. To you, it's small. To them, it's everything. Most people think walks are about movement. They're not. They're about information. When your dog stops to sniff, they're not being stubborn. They're reading the world in a way you never can. Not just quickly, but carefully. One scent at a time. Every scent is a story, and your dog doesn't just smell it. They stay there until the story feels complete. Who was here? How long ago? What they felt. And every time you pull the leash and say, "Come on," you're interrupting that process. To you, it's just a leash pull. To your dog, the story just ended before it made sense. That's the difference. Imagine someone closing a book every time you try to read a sentence. That's what it feels like. And eventually, they stop trying to read at all. That's where it changes. Not because they don't care, but because they've learned it doesn't matter. And over time, something changes. Slowly, your dog stops enjoying the walk. Not because they don't want to walk, but because they're not allowed to experience it. Slow down. Let them sniff. Let them lead sometimes. Because control doesn't build trust. Understanding does. Because a mentally satisfied dog is calmer than a physically exhausted one. One day, your dog is allowed on the couch. The next day, they're not. One day, jumping is cute. The next day, it's a problem. To you, it's flexible. To your dog, it's confusing. Not frustrating, confusing. Because dogs don't understand exceptions. They understand patterns, and they rely on them. Because patterns feel safe, predictable, like something they can rely on. They're not guessing what you mean. They're trying to recognize what repeats, what stays the same. And when the pattern keeps changing, they stop knowing what's right. And that uncertainty is where frustration begins. That's when behavior starts to break down. Not all at once, but slowly. Not because your dog is stubborn, but because your communication is unclear. Pick a rule. Stick to it. Make sure everyone in your home follows it. Consistency isn't strict. It's clarity. And clarity builds trust. It feels like love. And that's why it's so easy to miss. An extra treat, a little more food, a bite from your plate. And in the moment, it feels harmless. But to your dog, it slowly becomes something else. This is the part most people miss. It's where most owners don't realize what they're creating: an expectation. You see it when they look at you, every time you eat, every time you sit down. Dogs don't understand moderation the way we do. They understand repetition. To them, this is how things work now. So every time you give just one more, to them, it becomes the new normal. And before you realize it, you're not just feeding them, you're teaching them to ask again. Not calmly, but persistently, again and again. Until food becomes the center of everything. Not connection, not play, not you. And over time, something changes. It doesn't just affect behavior, it affects their health, their energy, their life. And they have no way to choose differently. Feed with intention, not emotion, because love isn't measured by how much you give, but by how well you understand what they need. It starts small, so small you almost laugh at it, so small you let it go, almost invisible. A jump when you walk in, a bark that lasts a little too long, a chew that isn't a big deal. So you ignore it, because it's easier, because it's not serious yet. But dogs don't see behavior as small or big. They see one thing: what works. If a behavior gets a result, attention, reaction, anything at all, it gets repeated. And repetition turns into habit. And habit turns into personality. And personality becomes something you think you can't change. That's when people say, "My dog just acts like this." But they weren't born that way. They learned it. Not in one moment, but in hundreds of small ones. From you, without you even realizing it. Slowly, quietly, repeatedly. Don't wait. Correct early. Redirect calmly. Reward what you want to see more of. Because every behavior you ignore, you're actually allowing. You feed them, you walk them, you sit in the same room, so it feels like you're spending time together. But your attention, it's somewhere else. On your phone, on your work, on everything except them. And they feel when it's not there, even before you realize it. And your dog knows, even when you think they don't. They always know where your attention is, even when you don't move, even when you say nothing. They can feel it, not in words, but in presence. Dogs don't just live in your home, they live inside your attention, and they notice when it disappears. And when that attention is missing, something shifts. They stop trying as much. At first, they try more, then less, and eventually, not at all. They stop engaging as much. They settle for less, because they've learned not to expect more. And that's the part most people never notice. Not because they don't care, but because they've learned that's all that's available. And this is the mistake that changes everything. Because unlike the others, this one affects every moment you're together, and it's the one most people never fix. Be there, even for a few minutes. Put the phone down. Make eye contact. Play, talk, connect. Because to your dog, you are not part of their life. You are their whole life. And everything you do teaches them what that life feels like. Most of these mistakes don't look like mistakes. That's why almost everyone keeps making them, until someone points them out, like this. But now you see them. And that changes everything. And once you see them, you can't go back to not knowing. You don't have to be perfect. Your dog doesn't need perfect. You just have to be aware. Because small changes, repeated every day, become something bigger than you think. They become trust. They become connection. They become the difference between a dog that just lives with you and a dog that feels safe, understood, and completely connected to you. If this changed the way you see your dog, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, which one hit you the hardest? Because your dog has been feeling it all along. And sometimes, It shows up in ways you don't fully understand yet, like the way your dog chooses to sleep next to you or press against you at night. That's not random. What that really means might surprise you. If you want to understand that deeper connection, watch this next, and you'll never see it the same way again.